This is part 3 of 4. I was going to do only 3 parts, but after I put together the video for this section, it turned out to be a very lengthy video, and I generally try to keep these things within a 15-minute time frame. So this video here will cover the Italian redo and box that we're making. And what this is going to do is the assembling of the inlays into the insets of the box that we burn, and some of the sanding processes, and getting us up to a point where the box actually starts looking like a box. So I think you'll find some of this interesting, and of course you can always skip it and move on to section 4 if you so desire. Okay, we're cutting the sides of the box right now. So the laser is cutting at approximately 105 millimeters per second, and we're shooting out 20 watts of power, and that's causing us to do the engraving, which is where I'm going to be putting my inlays. So this will take a few minutes to do. So these are the pieces right out of the laser, and you notice there's a lot of tar on here, which we're going to get rid of in a few moments. But since I use recycled woods a lot on the sides, whenever there's a glue line, there's this little piece that gets stuck up in here. I don't know if you can see it, but it's right here, and that's the glue line from the top and the bottom ones. So I'm going to chisel that out like that later on and get rid of all that. But in the interim, I got to do the cleaning, and what we're going to do is we're going to use good old acetone, because that's my favorite. It does a really good job on this, and it doesn't raise the grain of the wood. So I'm just going to take a rag and find a clean spot on it. Get some acetone on the rag, and then wipe off. And this will remove the vast majority of the tar. Now, one of the things that you're going to probably ask is, why am I doing that? Because I'm going to sand it down eventually anyways. Well, I don't want all that gunk on my sandpaper, because that wouldn't do very good. So I try to get as much off as I can. And I think this one's going to require 2 coats at least to get it off. But it's getting it off pretty good. And you can see the underlaying wood on this one. So yeah, that's going to be you know, the bottom front. And then these are going to be the sides. And I'll just do one over here real quickly. It won't take long, I hope. Soak it up. This has some type of a finish on there already before I kill it. And you can see that it cleaned up really fast. And now the rest of this stuff will come off with the sandpaper, so I don't have a problem with it. So the inlays are going to be multicolored, and I'm not sure exactly which ones I'm going to use. I'm thinking about paddock, and that will look really good, I think, around the periphery over here. And then okay, I got all my parts cut out for the bottom, and you can see there's an awful lot of parts on this particular one. These are paddock, and they're going to be, you know, inside of the leaf, so I'm going to put that off on the side for now. And I cut out some yellow heart, and that's going to be the center point for here, and walnut, and that's going to be the stars on the inside. Now for the front, I wanted to do a little bit more elegant, and I don't know if anybody's going to notice, but I do. I chose walnut again for the lower and the upper rows of stars. But for the inner ones, I chose black Dalmatian. And it's a pretty pricey wood, very difficult to cut with the laser, but it looks like it's going to work, and hopefully it'll be really pretty and noticeable when I'm done. If not, oh well, but I figured it would be a good contrast with this and the wood. So I'm just going to get a few seconds to get organized and get ready to do my thing. So I'm going to shut down for a while. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, we got assembly time coming up here. So before we start, I'm going to be using Titebond 2. That's the glue I use for all these. So we're going to start out by just doing the centers. And I'm going to put some glue in each one of these centers. Okay. And then using this neoprene glue thingy that I got from Rockler. It's pretty good, I like it. I'm going to spread the glue into all the corners and try to make sure that it gets everywhere that it needs to be on all of these. And you got to make sure it's on the edges too, just to get a good fit. So if you think you need a little bit more, squirt a little bit more in there. Okay, let's see what we got there. I guess this works better if you're right-handed, but since I'm left-handed, I get in the way of the camera a little bit, and this workbench doesn't let me move the camera position, so just you know, see what I'm doing. Okay, so now that I got the glue liberally spread there, I'm going to make sure the orientation of the grain is the right direction, and I also make sure that's correct, and put it in. And then again, make sure the orientation is right. Put it in. Now repeat that. And sometimes I make a mistake on this, but you know, I think this one looks pretty reasonable to me. Okay. I would probably want it a little bit tighter sometimes. Now I'm going to do the yellow heart, and I want to make sure I got that correct and right orientation on that. Okay, so now I got all that in there, and then the next step is going to put in the outside. So I'll probably hurry up through this in the video so you don't get bored. But you know, you can roll, you don't need too much, because remember, anything that's not inside the joint is going to be on your sandpaper. So that's always a good thing to remember. And again, using a proper thing, make sure that all corners and all sides are hit. You don't want any dry spots because that's going to be a weak point, and anything weak is going to cause a fracture eventually. So you want good bond on the wood, good bond on the inlay, and a lot. So it looks like everything will fit. Now remember, since it's glue, you gotta hurry up and lay it in. Okay, now we're back to real life, and we just let that glue up. And just want to make sure that we're seated. Okay, so if I didn't make many mistakes, this should be ready within a couple of hours. Alright, so now I've got to do the other one and then the front face. So it's going to be a little while. So I'll show it to you when I'm all done. So it's the next day, and everything looks like it dried up here. Okay, so the next step is ready. So now what I got to do is I sand this down so it's somewhat close to being flush with the surface, and I'll do it on all three of these pieces. Then I will assemble it and go on from there. So the next step is the actual sanding. Okay, it still isn't done yet. I have got most of it flattened down, but I don't finish it up yet until I assemble the box, because I still got to sand down the proud tongues that I've made for the box joint. So this is just stage one to get it down as close as possible. Gives me a good idea of what it looks like, and I think it's going to look pretty decent. Okay, what we're going to do now is I've got the sanding down roughly to the base, and we're going to assemble the base box and then let that dry. So this should be fairly simple, but we'll see. Okay, so using Titebond glue, I'm going to put the glue into the edges here. And we don't need a lot of glue, but I'll put enough glue in here to make sure that it's going to be a good fit. And then we spread the glue using this little tool over here, and that spreads the glue on the joint. And you probably want to get some on the top and on the bottom of the joint. And once that's there, we just assemble. See, that went in pretty simple. Usually they don't go in that easily. Okay, now I'll apply the glue to the next section since they're labeled. This should be number 2. Alright, so glue is applied, and I'll spread a little bit. I'm waiting all the time. I just have to double check this again. Make sure I have glue. That's a minus thing. Okay. So I'm happy with that. Now this is where everything will go wrong. Let's see what happens. It's a very tight fit, but it's not fit. So hold on. Okay, it's a little tighter than I want. It's no big deal. So. Okay. Let's see what we got here. That's nice and tight. That tight fit there. A little weird up here. Okay. Now we check for squareness, and we do that by using a square. Move that into here, and into here, to here. Wow, that worked out pretty nice. That looks to me like it's okay. So now the only other thing we got to do is we got to make sure that everything is closed up here. So we're going to put clamps on, and we're going to clean up the glue on the inside. And just glue up on the inside joints. And glue on the inside joints. So as you can see, it requires 8 clamps for each box I make. So you can't mass produce these unless you have one heck of a lot of clamps, and I just don't do that. So each box is individual. So all I still have to do is, after you do the final squeeze, you just got to clean up the glue on the inside edges and just wait. And I wait about maybe 2 to 3 hours before I'll unbind this. This next step is fun, because what we're going to do is we're going to take a router bit and we're going to go along the whole periphery here to make a little bit of a tray, and that tray is where we're going to put the bottom. So here we go. This shield just prevents it from going onto my shop. So I now have a nice little routed groove on the bottom that I can put my bottom on, and lots of chips. So I cut out the bottom using my program after I routed it, and glued it and put some pin nails in just to hold it in place during the time it dries. So now this is done, the bottom is fairly done, and it's ready for oiling, and that'll be the next step on the bottom. Well, maybe I gotta hinge it. I'll probably put the hinges on first. The next step was putting in the tray stops. So I'm going to be putting in 2 trays, and you have to put in some stops, otherwise the trays won't sit. So what I do is I just cut some real thin strips, and I put them on the side, and what I do is I measure from the top to the bottom, and then I subtract 1.4 inches. And the reason for that is the trays that I make are exactly 1 inch tall, 25.4 centimeters. So that will sit on top of this first piece of wood, and it'll leave enough room that if I put a mirror on the cover, it's not going to bump into the jewelry or whatever they put on the tray. The second one is I put a little bit of a ledge here and an insert. So again, I go from 3.5, which is this measurement. This is about 5 inches minus 1.4, that gives me 3.6 or something like that inches. So that's the length of this particular piece. I then subtract from this length another 1.4 inches, and that gets me where I need to be on the height of this next bottom piece. And I cut that in there because I got 2 trays. The second tray on the bottom, I like to have it sitting on a ledge. I don't know why, it's not really required, but I like to do that. So in order to do that, I have to do one other thing. I take this piece that I measured, which is 1.4 inches or 1.3 inches away from the top of this one, and subtract the width of how thick this particular piece is. And then that gets me my ledge to do here, and then I repeat that procedure for the other side, and voila, I have my ledges to sit for my trays.